Wee, don't tell me you're at Mountain Lakes with all of your friends. Wee, don't tell me you're gonna start talking about craft beer again. We're cracking wise on random craft beer news, hanging out with brewers, owners, and maltsters, doing interviews. It's the wee show, it's the wee show, it's the wee show, it's the wee show. It's the wee show, it's the wee show, it's the wee show, it's the wee show.
From the Brew House stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington, this is Wheat, Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast. You know, when I was a kid, my friends used to call me Davey, which would have been fine, except I used to wear a coonskin cap and really scratchy underwear, so my nickname was Davey Crotchage. I'm Dave Basarava, and here's your host, Chris Cindric.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody. That was I like that one. The Davey Crotchage.
That was really good.
Yeah, that was like off the charts.
But
that
the
was
story just is a little too close to home.
Yeah, well, you know. It's what we do here. We share
I'll be in the
intimate
back
pieces of
itching
ourselves.
my crotch.
So anyway, boy, do we have a neon sign kind of show for you tonight. Yes, we have TJ Wallen and Adam Boyd from Spokane's very own Garland Brew Werks as our special guests tonight. Welcome, TJ and Adam.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey, you bet. Thanks for being here. As always, I am joined by Dave Basaraba and Tim Hilton of Mountain Lakes Brewing Company. Good evening, gentlemen. What's the latest in Mountain Lakes and the Spokane craft beer news?
Oh, well, we've got that collab we did with Iron Goat that is finished fermenting and carved up and should be going into kegs and cans this week. We've also got one more week of the Riverfront Park Pavilion Wednesday Market. So if you want to get a good deal on 4 packs of cans and merchandise, everything's cheaper at the market.
So tell us a little bit, going back to what, not to bounce off the market, but the Iron Goat. Remind us of that collab and what is that? What did you guys brew?
That is the multiplayer, and really the only person that brewed that day was Colin, because the system is so automated that we literally just sat around and,
Bathed in the sarcasm of Greg Brandt.
Yeah, and it was so heavy. I mean, like, we were wading in it.
Yeah.
I think I was actually pretty instrumental.
Yes, you. I took a picture of you, and you had a stick at one point.
A stick?
Yeah, stick. You had a stick.
Yeah, I was telling them the kinds of things they were doing wrong and how to make good beer, and I think it's probably going to be a better beer than they normally make
because of that input.
Yeah.
It's the multiplayer, and we did it with Precious Things Fermentation Project. So shout out to Jeff Clark and Candace. And this one we used cashmere hops, which we've never brewed with here, and Greg had not brewed with them either. So it was a good opportunity to kind of see what this does.
So what does that bring? What does talk about cashmere? What do we get from that?
It's really soft.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
We'd used merino wool before, but
right.
This was...
Are you currently wearing a cashmere hop sweater? Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually make them all out of cashmere hops now.
Yeah. That's
like,
it looks really like I just want to go over and touch you.
Yeah. Come on over.
I will later during the break. So.
No, but cashmere is a blend, and Adam might actually know more, but it's Cascade and 2 others.
I don't think it's a blend.
One
it was
an
a
experimental.
hybrid, right?
It's like an H245 or something like that.
Yeah, I remember it came out because of some other agricultural issues with some other hops, and they sort of blended it together to kind of create, a hop profile that was already missing in the industry. But yeah, I don't recall exactly what.
Is any hop profile missing anymore? It feels like
no.
So is it off of an American type,
like
a piney grapefruit resiny kind of like a?
I found it was interesting because it was 2 pretty run-of-the-mill hops, like a Centennial and a Cascade, essentially crossbred, and it came out. What was produced was something that was, very very recent type of very very flavorful,
right.
citrusy and resiny.
Okay.
Hop.
And is it? When did you put it in for the boil? Is it more aroma based?
We put it in when it was pretty hot.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. You stuck. That's what that stick was.
Tim tested with his pinky. That's his most sensitive of fingers, and he was like, "Yeah, that's hot enough."
I actually think just about everything we did was post-boil.
Okay.
Or at the very, very end.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And mostly about 190 degrees, I think. That's,
Yeah.
And when are we looking for the multiplayer? When is that coming out?
I mean, it's supposed to. Greg texted me yesterday. It's supposed to go in cans and kegs in the next 10 days.
Oh, so release is soon. So we can be looking for that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, it will be on tap here,
Yes.
as well as Iron Goat,
As well as
As
precious
well
things
as precious
fermentation.
things.
And we'll have cans.
and you'll have cans.
Yeah, I
And the
think
cans will have Iron Goat's logo and our logo, but we just didn't have room for Jeff's.
precious things.
Oh,
And they're-
precious thing got left off?
Yeah.
They're
Wow.
so small that we're just going to say it's a small
Right.
logo.
Yeah, we stuck it underneath on the bottom of the can. It's like a secret.
It's like a little farmhouse addition to that. Well, to start the show off, we'd like to ask important people who work in the craft beer industry questions about what they do and how they do it. It's called Not My Beer. Please welcome tonight's Not My Beer guest from the historic Garland district of Spokane and Garland Brew Werks, TJ Wallen and Adam Boyd.
Thank you.
Hi.
Well, welcome, TJ and Adam. It's great to have you on the show. I know you both have been friends for quite some time prior to working together at Garland Brew Werks. So maybe let's start there and talk about things leading up to opening the brewery. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you each got into brewing, and then we'll work into that. So, TJ, you wanna start?
Yeah, I started out as a home brewer. I had a big love for the classic styles, and at some point when Adam came to my life into the brew club, the beer world was exploding with all kinds of things that were beer and not beer and beyond beer, and we kind of got in that together and drank them together, and then all that got ate up, and we went back to classic beers.
Okay. And so then, what was your life like prior to entering the beer world? Did you have a you were an EW alum, right? Is that right? So what did you study? And
I have a business degree. I was self-employed with a machine shop. I was much more responsible before I started brewing beer.
Me too.
Yeah.
And so then, did you start home brewing before you moved into owning Community Pint? Was that
Yeah, Community Pint was a step in my session.
okay? So then you started home brewing about how long ago?
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years ago. And how did that happen? How did you enter into the homebrew world?
I've just been a hobby guy. I used to race stock cars, so I got out of that because it was expensive, and I'm like, I can.
Oh,
make,
yeah, and
I can
brewing's
make-
really
I can
shows
make, I can make my own beer. And it was, having this glorious liquid on tap at my house that I made all the time was a great privilege.
Right. And so then, did you you a gym homebrew kind of person? You went there and bought a kit, or how did that work?
I live out in the valley, so it was internet, and then when New Homebrew, who later became Genus.
Right. Okay, so that was your start with a basic 5-gallon system.
Yeah.
That's what you had.
Yeah, that's where I started, but then I ended up with a full-on electric 10-gallon system.
Wow.
And had that in the basement. So when most people are freezing outside trying to brew or can't brew, I was brewing more beer.
All right, and so then, and beers were good. You were, truly.
It's hard to get feedback. Everybody loves free beer.
Right. This is true. And then you move into Community Pint, right? So owning Community Pint, and how did that come about?
The ultimate goal was to be a brewery, but I had zero experience in the front of the house, so it just made more sense to buy other people's beer and learn how to serve it, and we figured that was a good jumping point.
Okay. And then, so Adam, let's go back into your history. Tell us a little bit about you and how you're an EW alum as well.
I am, yeah.
So let's start there. So
and a EW employee.
yes, this is true. So tell us a little bit about you and your pre-beer history, and then your progression to where you are today.
I started down a different path. Beer was not my initial career. I actually spent a little over a decade in the film industry and media industry, and that's what I went to school for at EW. But as I tell a lot of my students now, I currently teach in the film program at EW along with brewing, is that, the film industry is a great gateway into drinking. And as I was traveling the country working on film and commercial projects, the sort of, common thread was always the beer and food culture of where I was. So I started kind of checking out beer, and, I would land in a new town and find out where the closest brewery was, check out the beer there, and I kind of started. The bug bit me, and just like TJ said, a hobby guy, it was kind of like, this beer is interesting. What is this? What's the history of this? And then, wait, you can make beer yourself at home? And the rest kind of just fell into it and got hooked on the hobby of making it myself.
Okay. And when was that? So you graduate, or did you start brewing prior to graduation?
When I was in college and when I graduated, I was not drinking good beer.
Okay.
I thought beer was something you had to just endure in order to maintain social status. And it was not until I probably was starting my film career in my early 20s that I finally tasted a beer that wasn't, yellow fizzy water and thought, whoa, this has flavor, and what is that? And I'm sorry, hops? What are those? And,
Right.
So you start to, well, I want more of that. A stout? What is a stout? It's dark. I don't understand. That's a beer? So you start to seek those out, and then the next thing you know, you're, spending all your time at Huckleberry's in the international beer section, going, what is this? And grabbing every silly bottle you can find, and that's kind of how it happened. Yeah.
And then exploring all through your film, all of those breweries and kind of that community
anymore
piece.
Then it just became I was the beer guy on the film set, and I would be the one seeking out the local breweries and talking to people about beer while we were trying to work on a film. And I moved away from that side of things. I wanted to stay more local. I was doing a lot of traveling, and that was hard. I had just a new kiddo in my life. Had a little one. I didn't really like living out of a suitcase anymore and was looking for something a little more permanent. I ended up teaching at EW, but at the same time still had that itch. I was homebrewing obsessively, and I had the opportunity to finally get a job in the beer industry at Iron Goat several years ago.
Okay. And so then with your home brewing, did you, similar to TJ, did you move from kind of the 5-gallon system to then a nicer?
Yes. Yeah, it was definitely a progression. I actually think I started, it was a Father's Day gift after knowing my daughter was on her way. It was the little plastic Mr. Beer sets, if anyone's seen them, like a J.C. Penney around Father's Day.
How did she buy you a gift if she wasn't even born yet?
It's amazing. She's a very talented young kid, and she's always has been, even in the womb. So in utero, she purchased the gift for me. No, but yeah, I had one of those, made some really awful beer that I think even I still had a bottle 7 or 8 years later sitting collecting dust in my basement that I think I made TJ drink at one point.
It really fucking sucks.
Right. That was a Mr. Beer beer.
Like, why would you
Mr.
make
Beer
that
Kit beer.
and keep on brewing?
Yeah, and I shouldn't have. I mean, I'll be honest, and I tell a lot of homebrewers this is my first several beers were probably undrinkable. I should have quit the hobby long ago, but here we are.
But I was in a dorm room doing my first batches, and anyone likes free beer,
Right.
especially when you're underage.
Yeah.
They were like, it's got alcohol in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This tastes like popcorn and cream corn, but I don't care. I'm going to drink it
Did
all.
you soak Band-Aids in this?
Yeah.
That's a cool flavor.
What's going on? But it's getting me drunk. I don't care.
Guys, it's similar. Dave started his career in the film industry as well.
Hey, I was young. I needed the money.
That's good. Yeah, what was the...
And just like you, he ended up with an itch, too.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're back to Davy Crotchy.
Davy Crotchich. That was your screen name. That's right. Yes.
Thank you for saying screen.
And so then, but you also then kind of moved, and I think you both were connected to this from when we talked before. There's the Inland Brewers Unite, which is IBU, which is our regional Home Brewers Association. Is that how you both met? And then you, Adam, you were the president at one point, right? So tell us a little bit about IBU.
Yeah, that is where TJ and I met. And we had actually been, we met through the club, and we had been kind of hanging out and brewing together, and it was kind of bizarre. We ended up going to an event together later after we had been brewing for a while, and his wife came and attended, and I was like, Sarah? And I'd gone to school with TJ's wife all the way from elementary school through high school. So, small world here in Spokane.
He went to a dance with one of her sisters.
TJ likes to bring that up a lot. But
The boring one.
But yeah, and so we connected. It's just one thing. You get into that hobby, then you start looking around. You want to hang out with people who are also into the hobby. You want to learn a little more. I started just kind of connecting through some Facebook events and got hooked up with the club. And before I knew it, there was sort of a leadership change happening, and the club was sort of like, well, we need someone to be president. And I was like, I'll do it, because I'm foolish and don't know how to say no. And so I took over and was the president of the club for a little over 4 years in that time. And it was a great experience. It was really fun. It gave me a lot of opportunities. I ended up getting a chance to speak twice at the National Homebrewers Convention on certain subjects. And I think we did a great job in sort of elevating the club and getting a chance to do a lot of collaborations with professional brewers here in the area, which again just kind of furthered me down the rabbit hole of brewing.
Right.
So yeah.
So now that is the National Homebrewers Association affiliated with the Brewers Association, isn't that right?
They are, yeah.
Yes.
They're like a small offshoot.
And then they have
Brewers.
they just brought on Julia Hers,
Yes.
right, to
Yeah.
be able to. So that's that component.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
And they have their own conference, right?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where you spoke.
Yeah, and so it's a big national conference, much like kind of the like a CBC, sort of the Craft Brewers Conference. It's very educationally centered. They bring in a lot of professionals and individuals to give seminars and talks, and then of course there's just tons of homebrew and beer from local breweries wherever you're at, and it's just kind of a big, like usually a 3-day kind of just celebration of the hobby of homebrewing. And I had a chance to speak in when the conference came to Portland, Oregon, and then I also went over to Providence, Rhode Island, and did a talk about pumpkin beers of all things.
Oh, nice.
And gave a big passionate talk about why pumpkin beers are valid.
Cool.
Why they are valid?
Why is it?
Why they are valid? Yes, it was a tough sell, but I got the whole room to raise their hand and pledge that they would give pumpkin beers a shot. So
Well, there you go.
Yay.
Hey, thanks for the one clap.
There we go.
We've got a pumpkin spice fan.
And so now you're then at Iron Goat. What year is that you started?
That would have been, it was just over 5 years ago. So if you do the math, what is that? About
5 years ago.
2017.
Yeah, exactly. And
So-
then Community Pint comes into existence what year?
Same year.
Same year. So then you're both moving into a new realm of the beer world, of taking your home brewing and your beer love to then another level. So TJ, tell us a little bit about starting Community Pint and how that came about, because that was Jones Radiator, and then it was vacant for a while. How'd that come about then?
We've been looking all over town for a location. We looked at the old Viking. We all over. We looked at lots of spaces, and that just was the one that had the charm that we wanted. It's just down the road from here. Has new great owners, Joss and Rachel. But like I said earlier, it was just a great starting off point to getting into the beer industry and learning about it all. I'd never even opened a cash register before on the user side.
Right.
Before then.
So what's POS? Oh,
Yeah.
that's point of of
Yeah.
what? Okay. All right.
Yeah, being a car guy, that meant something else.
Yeah. And so then you're at Iron Goat, Adam, and brewing there. And so then how does Garland, that come into existence? Because you had Community Pint, and then I know that you had started, was it Project Craft, TJ, right?
Yeah, that was my first delve into learning this government regulations on beer and all that. So that was a great starting off point. But
And that was with a different Adam.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then how did, tell us a little bit about how you, came into the Garland area. So how did you choose that? And then how did you two kind of blend in together to making Garland Brew Works happen?
yeah, so I wasn't looking to open up a brewery at that time. We were still in the middle of the pandemic. I got a cold call from the property owner trying to pitch me to build another Community Pint up there. I'm like, I'm not really looking, but I'll go take a look. And I walked in there, and it was like the perfect spot for a brewery. It was like, there's no way I can turn this down. Once in a lifetime experience, you know? So we started looking at that. Before I even signed a lease, I talked to Adam. I got a verbal okay that he would come brew. And I'm like, okay, we're set.
So I heard more about this story, though. Like, there's more to the story. Like, what happened? You went and saw the space. You brought it. You came in.
Yeah,
it was
I had been brewing at Iron Goat
Right.
for a few years, and at the time that TJ had found the space, I was the lead brewer at Iron Goat and was pretty much the sole brewer at the time. And
Soul, S-O-U-L.
yeah,
Soul
Soul
brewer.
brewer. I
Yes.
mean, you guys had Greg on. Soul sucking is what I would describe.
You have the head brewer, and then you have the ass brewer.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's where I was. But
So you were just looking to get out any point. Yeah.
as soon as possible. No. But yeah, I mean, I know Greg came on here and insulted me frivolously, but I learned everything. I'm the brewer I am today because of all the work I did at Iron Goat and everything I learned there, and it was.
Can you do that without looking at the notes in front of you now?
Well, okay. What was the first word? No.
You know why he insulted you like that, right? Because deep down, he's an asshole.
Oh, I'm well aware of that. But yeah, no. But and I learned a ton there, and I'm really appreciative of Greg and the owners of Iron Goat and what they did for me. And it really was just when that opportunity gets presented to you at Iron Goat, there were certainly limitations. I was a brewer, and whenever there was a moment to do something creative, Greg was very open to allowing me to do that. But those moments were few and far between with just sort of the model of
Right,
where
'cause-
Iron Goat is. And so when you get a call from your community pint owning homebrewing friend TJ, and he says, "Hey, you want to just come look at this building I'm looking at and just give me some thoughts?" And he walks you into the back and says, at first I was thinking, oh, maybe a second community pint location, but then I saw this back area and thought brewery, and what do you think? And started to ask me questions about a brew house and how you would put floor drains in, and I'm answering the questions, as a good friend would. And as he's walking me out the door, thanking me, he's sort of like, if you ever wanted to come brew for me, and that planted the seed. And I went home and kind of sat and stared at a wall for a few hours thinking about
5 minutes.
And I texted him back and said something like, "Yeah, I'm in." So yeah, that's where.
And you live in Garland.
I do.
So,
I'm
yeah.
actually roughly 10 blocks from the brewery, so I have certainly walked home on a couple occasions. Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
No,
Not
exactly.
I try to walk home. That's why we live in Cheney. It's like I can walk home from most places. So then you decide to make this happen, and the space is nice because of the layout of the building. And I went in and was able to kind of see everything, and it's really quite the nice space. It's very open. I've never been into the brew house area, and the tap room is. So tell us a little bit about your decor, like how you came up with. How does all that happen from establishing your brew house? And I know TJ, you have a significant background in machine work, and so then you did a ton of work to be able to build the brew house. Tell us about how the whole tap room and brew house came to be.
Yeah, it was really blessing at the time. I owned a bottle shop in the middle of a pandemic. I was bored. So having that giant project was overwhelming, but it was also really what I needed at the time. I got my general contractor's permit, and I did most of the work myself. As far as the decor, if you've ever been to Community Pint, it's a dungeon. So we went 180. It's white, a little brighter. Everything's a little taller. It's just
a little more
open.
colorful.
Yeah, very open, airy, very comfortable. All right, but very clean feeling as well.
And there's a giant beer as art tagline on the wall.
Or beer fart.
Beer fart, one of the two. Yeah. No, I love it, and it's great. And then you looked at the system, and so tell us a little bit about your brew house and the system that you brew on.
Yeah, Adam and I went back and forth about the size, what we wanted to do. We wanted to be a neighborhood pub. We wanted to be big enough that we weren't out of beer all the time, but small enough that we could have some more variety. So we settled on a 5-barrel.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and there was a really strong advantage, I guess, I had from coming from Iron Goat. It's kind of, it doesn't happen often, probably when a brewer gets to run through the gamut of many years working at a brewery, and then getting the chance to say like, well, if I did one myself, what would I do different? And I had the opportunity to a lot of times talk with TJ about sort of like, well, this is something I ran into at Iron Goat as a brewer that would be great if we could, incorporate here. And sometimes, you always want the perfect world to work in, and that's not always either within the budget or logistics. But I feel like we made a lot of decisions that I was fortunate to have the background to know, like, yeah, this is going to really help me in this endeavor.
Yeah, what would
for sure.
Greg Brandt do, and then do the
Exactly,
opposite?
do the opposite.
Right.
For one, not insult people who care about him.
How did you go about choosing your beer style? So how does that come into play? Has that been influenced from beers at Community Pint? Has that been influenced by what you brewed at Iron Goat? Or how did you come up? And if you had to kind of make a general overview of what types of beers you have on tap, what does that fall into?
I just took all of the Iron Goat recipes with me, and that's what I make at Garland. I mean, no, I'm just
That
kidding.
was very smart. That was very
The
wise.
head butt became the butt head, and
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, if you come, you'll see. I mean, most of the names I didn't even change them.
Right. Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
Bob's
Yeah.
still your uncle.
Bob's still your uncle. Garbage blonde.
I don't. TJ, do you have? Yeah, I mean,
we live in the Northwest, so we brew a lot of IPAs.
yeah. And I think there was when we opened before, like one of the initial conversations is TJ had an idea for an IPA before anything. Like he said, there's one thing I want. It's the OG IPA. It's original Garland. And he's like, I just want it to be a classic, like, nod to the West Coast IPAs of like what we were drinking when we got into craft beer. And I was like, okay, yes, boss, I'll work on it.
And you made that
The recipe.
happen.
So made it happen. And I think most of the styles from there, we definitely talked about kind of, we wanted a selection on the board of, at least one dark beer, something malty, but maybe not so dark, a good selection of IPAs. And as we started coming up with recipes and releasing them, then it was kind of, we were just going off of what people were giving us feedback on and what the tap room was telling us. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he agrees.
I think the neighborhood likes 5 to 6.5% beers. We keep on putting them out.
Right.
Lagers do well for us.
Yeah,
Hazy Pale kills it.
Yeah, there's definitely something that seems to be true. Is like I target a lower ABV sessionable beers at Garland.
Right.
It seems like the drinking crowd is just much more about coming in, hanging out for a long time, and being able to knock back a few beers.
So you were voted the best new brewery in the Inlander, which is kind of a cool thing, eh? Woo! So congratulations with that. We're having Mountain Lakes also was voted the first year they were open the best new brewery. So congratulations to you as well.
It's a small club.
You, me, same.
Same.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for finally saying it, Chris.
Yeah.
It's been 4 years now. Jeez.
You
And
bet.
you know what? Actually,
Our first question was, what are the other breweries that opened? Why is this a category?
you know what?
Hey,
Honestly, I think
We don't need that energy.
That's what the Inlander told me. Do you want
Yeah.
to come to the party or not? I was like, okay, I'll come.
Basically, I think we beat Humble Abode was about it, and I think it's because
We
they
opened before them.
Yeah, we opened before them, and but it was very competitive. Now there's like 10 breweries a year opening, so their award is legit.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
yours, what I was trying to get to is yours is probably more legit.
Yeah.
Like, there were other breweries that opened.
Yeah.
but then how does that feel though? Being is there any perks that come from being the Inlanders? Best voted brewery, new brewery.
That's got to get people through the door to at least come try it. Who
I think a
hadn't
little
yet?
bit, but mostly the Inlanders just trying to sell us ads.
That's very cynical. They will call forever.
We're pulling
Ding,
the
ding,
curtain
ding.
back.
We have a
everybody.
winner.
Oh, you do get to go to the party if you, which is really a nice party.
Free food.
Free
It's
food,
pretty
good
exciting,
stuff.
actually. The best part of my year so far.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Adam, I know you're a fan of fermentation on many levels. So talk a little bit about other fermentations you're into.
It's a long kink list, but I'll start at the top. I think it started with beer initially, but I'm just a big nerd. when I got into home brewing, I bought every book I could about brewing and read every book. And the more research I did, it was like, oh well, it turns out yeast and bacteria aren't just in beer; it's in all kinds of stuff that's around you and that you eat. And so it was kind of like I'm a foodie. I always have been, and so I got interested in other stuff. So, and as a home brewer, like you start researching this stuff, and it's like, oh, if you want to ferment foods, most of the stuff you already have that you make beer with works for that too. So I was like, oh, hey, I already got the equipment. So yeah, I got into fermenting. First it was kind of fermenting vegetables, like making fermented pickles and fermented vegetables. Then I got into fermenting peppers for hot sauce and making hot sauce. I'm a big hot sauce guy, and I'm also a gardener, so I was growing the stuff I was fermenting, and then there was a whole nother world of like baking bread that I was like, God, I should dip my toe into this. So then I started baking, and it was the pandemic hit, and that was like the perfect time for everyone got into making sourdough bread, right? So I was like, I'll join the club, and since then I like bake bread every weekend, and I actually the sourdough starter that I use to bake bread on a weekly basis came from a beer culture that was pulled out of the foeder at Iron Goat Brewery, and actually that's where my sourdough starter came from. So so
Greg's been looking for that.
Yeah, he can pry it from my cold dead hands. No, but yeah, so I got into that, and so now it's just like anytime I find a book, it's like, oh, you can ferment. Like right now, I'm reading a book about koji and the wonderful mold that ferments things like soy sauce and miso, and I've been doing some interesting experiments with that. But yeah, so I don't know if it'll bubble and turn into something tasty. I dive right.
You're on
into
board.
It. Yeah.
It's almost like it reminds me of Portlandia. Like you can pickle that.
Oh yeah, you can pickle.
You can
anything.
ferment that.
Yeah,
you can ferment
I bring
that.
it up all the time. People
Yeah.
will point to something. I'm like, oh, you can ferment that.
You gotta
Tennis
ask
ball.
him. You got to ask him about his scobies.
Oh
About-
yeah, so another thing I got into was kombucha, which actually is something we offer at Garland Brew Werks. And I actually started the kombucha program several years ago at Iron Goat, and started experimenting there. They had kind of talked about it. One of the owners at the time had made kombucha at home, but then she sold her portion of the brewery to Greg and Heather and had left, and we had invested in all this equipment to make kombucha, and I was like, I'll do it. I've made a couple batches at home, and from there it became this kind of program that I really kind of fell in love with in making the kombucha, and it was a non-alcoholic option that we offered at Iron Goat that developed its weird own little fan base where people would come in and ask me, what's the next kombucha? I'm like, really? Okay. And so
Enough with this beer stuff.
Yeah.
What do you got in the kombucha?
All right. So when I left there, it was at the time, at least, Greg was kind of like, it was your thing. So when I left, I was willing to educate or train, and Greg was like, it's kind of your thing. So I took it with me. And
I'm more interested in hop water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just poking fun at past employees.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I said I wasn't going to cry.
So I took it with me, and it took a little prodding, I think, for TJ. I was trying to convince him, no, it was really popular at Iron Goat, and he was like, a lot of things are popular. But we ended up putting it on tap, and again, we kind of have our own weird fan base. We actually had several people come in and be like, we heard the kombucha guy from Iron Goat's here now, so what do you have?
And I've never been more regular.
Right.
Oh, that's good
Yeah.
to hear.
Fermented
Happy.
foods.
That's just good for the biome, man.
Yeah, it's very good.
So
All the
another thing, another feather in the hat as far as fermentation goes.
Yeah, right. That's very good. And then you also do firkins. And so now you're doing a Firkin Friday. Tell us a little bit about your Firkin Fridays.
Yeah.
Firkin A.
Tell us first, maybe for people listening, what a firkin is.
Sure,
And
yeah.
then get into the whole...
Well, I'll get technical. We actually don't have a firkin. That's technically a cask that is 15 gallons, I think, which is keg size. We have what's called a pin, which is just under 5 gallons. But Pin Friday doesn't have the same alliteration. So, but a firkin...
It's okay. I called the LCB about it, though. They're going to make you
Okay.
change it to Pin Friday.
Yeah,
You gotta catch me first.
camera called, and they're like, hey, man.
Camera would be very upset with
Yeah.
most of the things I do. But, so it's a cask, which is like a little tiny, basically like a little tiny keg. And in this case, a lot of times what we're doing is every week we're putting a different beer in this vessel. And the way that it's served is that it is not under like CO2 pressure like a keg would be. Instead, it's basically being stored at cellar temperatures, meaning we bring it out from our cooler and set it on the bar. And then we tap it, and it is gravity fed. And so it's essentially a one-night thing because oxygen is entering the cask as we're pouring it. And so it's this live living thing because it is sometimes it's been primed and sort of conditioned in the cask. So it's kind of like a bottle-conditioned beer. And we're doing all kinds of fun, crazy stuff with some of the beers we have on tap and like putting fruit in the cask or crazy ingredients like coffee and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, TJ.
Yeah.
Go.
The TLDR is we get to put stupid stuff in beer because it has a big hole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The bunghole.
the bunghole. Yeah.
Yeah. We've had
Anything with a
that.
big bunghole.
We tap it right there at the bar. You actually drive a tap into the cask. So you kind of pound it in with a hammer, which is kind of a fun entertainment bit, watching me.
People get spread.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of oops moments, but not major, but, you know, enough to taste it off your face,
Right.
which is a privilege, if you ask me, but
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
you got into brewing.
yeah. But so every Friday at this point, we're kind of doing that. We're either taking a beer we have on tap or maybe a beer we've got in the back of the brewery fermenting away that we're doing something special with. We throw it in the cask, we tap it, and one night only, come on down and try this new kind of crazy addition of one of our beers.
Sweet. That's awesome.
It's cool
Very
to know how much cool stuff you can put in there. And the firkin, because Dave was like, let's get a firkin. And I was like, all right. And he goes, and what can we put in it? And I was like, I have no firkin idea. So it's good
So
to
it's
get
just sat in the basement now. For
yeah,
Just down
for a
there.
long
4
time.
years.
Yeah.
So what's in store at Garland Brewworks that folks need to know about coming up for the spring and into the summer? What's the need to know?
We have an exciting release on Saturday. It's our
That's true.
What is the exciting release?
So there are 9 stores on Garland that sell records. So we made a beer called Double Track.
Double groove.
Double Groove.
Double Groove.
So it's so it's a beer brewed in honor of Record Store Day, which is actually April 23rd on Saturday, which is like a national day to like celebrate vinyl records and the stores that continue to sell them and offer them to people. And because we have such a large presence of record stores on our little strip where we're located, we decided to brew a special beer. So it's an imperial or double hazy IPA that we brewed that features mainly Azaka hops.
Have you guys thought about trying to sell records?
Well, that would make
Seems like-
10 record stores on the strip, and that seems like one store too many.
That could be record breaking.
Right. Well, Adam and TJ, it has been a true pleasure talking with you and learning your story and the exciting things happening at Garland Brewworks. Thank you so much for joining us on Not My Beer. That wraps up the first part of our show. We'll now take a break and be back in a few with TJ, Adam, Tim, and Dave, and an audience contestant for a little game we call Whose Beer This Time?
Welcome back to the Brewhouse stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington. This is Wheat Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast. And once again, here's your host, Chris Cindric.
Well, thank you, Dave. And now the game that tests your knowledge of recent beer news. It's called Whose Beer This Time? We've asked an audience member to step up for the challenge. Hello and welcome. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Stacy, and I used to live down in Pullman, and I was part of a community band for a while. And part of our community band, we had the Off Gates band that would play for home brewers down in Lewiston. So that was always a highlight of being part of that band because we would play a little bit and then drink a little beer, and it was great.
So the
beer.
Lewiston Homebrewers Association is so large that they have a house band.
No, they just would pay us to go play for them.
That's awesome.
And so then this would be at like an event that was happening with the not like you went and like Bob was brewing and he'd be like, "Hey, come play in my garage."
I'm
while
mashing in about
mashing in about noon.
Can you hit like the high notes right when I add like the Whirlpool edition?
Yeah.
That would be rad.
guitar solo.
I can't pay you, but I'll get you so drunk.
That's
no,
right.
You gonna want to
it
band
was
in the
great.
brewery now?
No, it was,
What do you play?
I play the alto saxophone.
Me too.
Oh,
Sweet.
It's awesome.
nice. And so then, what was the name of your band?
It was just the Offgates, but it was part of the Pullman community band. So
Okay, very cool. Well, welcome to the show. You're going to be playing a game we call Who's Beer this time, and Dave is going to read you 3 events from recent beer news, and if you can correctly answer just 2 of them, you will win a prize, free beer in a pint glass, and I believe tonight we actually have a crowler as well of a Garland Brewworks beer. Is that correct? Is that right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah?
Actually, if you win,
Oh, no.
no.
It's-
Lifetime supply of beer.
It's
at
not.
Garland.
It's not a crowler. Wait a minute. Wait. No. This is even better. It's a card game. It's a beer drinking card game.
That's correct.
Is that right?
I know that is correct.
All right. So what is that?
It's a game called Hammered Heroes, and it is a drinking card game. It's a take that card game. You can play with 3 to 5 players, and there are additional drinking rules if you want to get silly. But it takes your favorite fantasy and magical characters that you might be familiar with and puts them into a position where they may have had one too many to drink at the tavern before they went into battle. So, yeah, locally designed by yours truly, along with a couple other folks. And
I was gonna say, I was
So-
like, what is this game, and why did
Right.
you feel that our like contestant tonight needed this game particularly?
because I wanted
It's
to
the
plug it.
greatest beer game ever.
Yeah. And it was developed by you, Adam Boyd.
That's true.
And,
Dude,
yeah.
we should have
Is-
this should be a sponsor of the show, and every contestant gets a copy.
Well, I could do that.
We can
Yeah.
we can work out the money
Okay,
later.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think
Money's
tonight.
always
Tonight you said it would be a signed copy.
I'm
Right?
happy to sign it.
Yeah, well, there
and,
you go.
And decrease the value of your game.
Well, there you go.
This one's been written on.
Stacy, tonight only you'll get a half barrel of Garland Beer Works beer every month for the rest of your life.
I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, congratulations.
All right. Well, there you go. And so, Stacy, are you ready to play?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's hear your first question.
Recently, a well-known craft brewery was just awarded $56 million in a trademark lawsuit against a brand owned by Molson Coors. What is the craft brewery and Molson Coors brand involved in this lawsuit? Is it A, Highline Brewing and Miller High Life Beer, B, Stone Brewing and Keystone Light Beer, or C, Mountain Lakes Brewing and Coors Light Beer?
I think I'm gonna go with B.
That's right.
Yeah, you're going to get B, Stone Brewing and Keystone Light Beer. Yes, the correct answer is B. Said Stone co-founder Greg Cook, Molson Coors threatened our heritage, but we stood up to that threat. They will put the key back into Keystone, ending their 4-year co-op of the Stone names. Have you guys been following this in the news? Did you see?
Yeah, it was like a 20-ounce can and ish, or it was a tall boy and it was blue and it said Stone, but if you turned it, it said Key above it. I mean, they were poking the bear a little bit, I think, because he's obviously a bear that loves to growl. I mean, he's known for it.
Yeah.
You know
Greg
what,
Cook
though? This is one thing I'm not for the craft beer, the brewery, because there's nobody who's confusing Keystone and Stone Brewing.
And I worked for a Coors distributor in Portland when I was young, and Keystone is down here. Stone is way down here. I've never seen
Right.
them close to each other. So no one down there grabbing their malt liquor.
It was funny. I think one of the lawyers for Keystone even pointed out the fact that like most people who buy Keystone are like using food stamps or like they even pointed out that most of their clientele are like, oh, like these guys are broke or using unemployment money to buy our beer. They're
Yeah,
not getting
I
this
do
brand
recall that on
confused,
Instagram, some
which
quote.
sort of opened up a whole nother question line of like, is that something you're proud of?
Yeah,
But,
and the
you
Steel
know, I don't-
Reserve guys were like, we don't allow EBT. So.
Right.
So.
We're actually suing Bush right now.
Oh, why?
Yeah.
Why Bush?
Head for the mountains of Bush.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you go
It's
after Coors.
confusing.
right?
It's
Coors
confusing.
Coors
our-
with their blue mountains,
Yep.
the cans cold
Oh,
because.
that's Coors. Yeah,
Coors
yeah,
Light.
We're suing them too. Yeah.
well, shit, you
Well, it's,
ought to.
it's confusing the consumer.
Well, and I do know with Stone, they own the trademark Stone. So the issue is, even if Keystone used the term before, the trademark belongs to Stone Brewing. So you are an infringement
Yeah.
of using the term Stone, which any larger brewery, macro brewery, would go after immediately. A microbrewery that was opening with their trademark, right?
True. You know, actually, this happened years ago. Remember Pete's Wicked Ale?
Yeah.
Long ago. So, Pete's Wicked Ale had the logo of that dog with the little patch, right? And then Anheuser-Busch had Spuds MacKenzie,
Right.
which came after. And then Anheuser-Busch sued Pete's to say you need to get rid of that logo because it's ours now.
So, Stacy, here is your second question.
According to a recent article in Food and Wine magazine, an old practice of warming beer to make a tasty drink is on the rise and coming back into practice. The Brits called this type of beer a flip, and the Germans call it Bierstacheln. What is the method used to create this hot beer drink? Is it A, set a pewter mug on the fire and wait 5 minutes? B, add hot rocks to your beer? Or C, stir the beer with a red-hot poker?
Wow.
It's a stirring question.
Stirring, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic. It's
yeah.
red hot.
Oh, okay. So I'm feeling like C, stirring it.
That
Stirring
is
it.
correct. You are right. You're correct. Yes, the correct answer is C. Yes, a metal rod is heated and then poked into a beer where the complex sugars caramelize and creates a toasty marshmallow-like character. Typically a malt-forward beer like a Doppelbock. In British culture, it's been done for years, and so it was a way to warm a beer. And so you would take a hot poker off the fire, and then you would mix it. It would caramelize. It gives us this hot toddy type, drink, and it's called a flip. And in German, they use a little different rod, and the Bierstachen, or whatever the heck that was. And it basically means beer spike. Well, Stacy, here is your third question.
On April 7th, National Beer Day, Miller Lite introduced a product that was aimed at making other crappy beers taste like Miller Lite. What was the product? Was it A, Miller Lite beer drops, B, Miller Lite Alka-Seltzer antacids, or C, Miller Lite chewing gum?
Wow, the gum sounds interesting. But
So this is basically you order a light beer, but it's not a Miller Lite. So you're like, well, I want to taste Miller Lite, so I'm going to do this to my beer to make it taste like Miller Lite because that's the king of all light beers.
Plop, plop.
So there's a drop that makes something.
I know.
There's
yeah.
a drop that makes something
Right.
taste less like something.
Yeah. A. Yeah. We got it.
So it is A, right? The correct answer is A. S. Miller Lite introduced the beer drops the week of April 7th and immediately sold out. You just add the beer drops to any light beer and you can make it taste like Miller Lite. So they were selling them online. They were like $4 a pop.
amazing.
But they sold out.
So it removed flavor.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or what if you had water, just added flavor so it's non-alcoholic?
So what would
Was
you
it just
add?
water?
I don't know.
What was in these beer drops? Like it was a.
I don't know. It's like some kind
Water.
of.
Was it
If
like a
only
little mint?
somebody was like, "Hey, when are they selling those, and how do I buy them?" And actually bought 4 packs of beer drops.
Oh.
Miller Lite. Yes, they sold out
Empty.
the day I bought. They sold out in literally 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's
and
what
I
was
got
gonna
on.
say. I was gonna say
I
you
bought
can,
for- you know how
can
much
sell
these are
out of
going.
anything
You
if
know how much
just
these are
make a
going on
few.
for eBay right now. These are going for like $35.
Let me see. Toss one down here.
So-
Let me
No,
see these.
hold on. You want,
Could we try it with our
So
gold?
as an additional prize, you get.
Beer.
You can pass that down. That's
Oh.
yours. You get your own little pack of beer
Wait,
drops
has
if you want to.
have you even tallied the
This
score
one
yet?
I haven't opened yet, but we're going to try it out. So wait a minute. Is that one sealed?
How many drops per pint?
No.
do you
So I
need?
don't know.
Oh, so I
You
was
take
thinking
this, you open it, so like so. And then what you do is you take it. I guess
It looks like
you
those
put it-
Mio
you
things.
Squeeze it into your beer. Let's see if your beer tastes like Miller Lite. Oh, I love Miller Lite.
Oh wow, what a achievement!
And the
Holy
verdict?
shit, that's so good.
Boyd's reaction.
There you go. Try it. Pass it down. There you go.
Boyd's
Add
reaction.
it to
He's
your
gonna
beer.
get quoted on the next release. What an achievement!
Do you think it's going to make my stout taste like Miller Lite?
Each bottle's
It smells
supposed to be.
like my grandmother's basement.
Oh, so actually really good.
I'm just gonna squirt it on
Really
my
good.
tongue.
I'm good, actually. Oh Lord!
That's the way.
For those listening along at home,
These are eye drops.
TJ may have just ingested a lot of eye drops.
What do you think we could do at Mountain Lakes to sell like Mountain Lakes drops? What would go in it?
So I know how they did this. I
Okay.
know exactly.
Yeah.
They took cardboard
They soaked
and they soaked it in water,
for like a month.
and then they put it in this.
And they said, hey, your beer now tastes oxidized.
Yeah,
Yes.
they wrung it out. Yeah.
Because
I
it
don't know why
tastes
you
like-
guys are bullying Miller Lite. Miller Lite is one of the best.
Oh, it should work great in that dark beer.
Yeah.
squirted into it.
It's not
Okay.
the champagne beers. That's Miller High Life.
Like this beer just dropped to
very
96 calories. That's what's awesome. You add it to your style, like you put it into your peanut butter porter, and it goes down to 96 calories.
Get this. This is only 2 servings.
Yeah, that is too.
You're supposed to use. It says you're supposed to use half the bottle in your other light beer.
you know, Chris, we have a 96-calorie beer too. It's only 3 ounces, but it's
It landed on the floor, and that's where it stays.
Stays.
Well, anyway, that is so yours to sell on eBay for $35 a pop right now. Yeah, I jumped on. I bought the max, $4, 4 of them.
How many of these should we make?
I still
Bob?
have 2 at
At least
home.
Wait,
At
hold
least
on.
100.
There's an
And,
expiration date, as
Yeah.
if cardboard water expires.
Yeah.
Yeah, tastes better after this date.
So anyway.
It's fairly soon.
July
It's
31st.
in July. It's fairly
2022.
soon.
Yeah,
How does that work?
all good things spoil. It's a born on date, and you gotta, adhere to it.
Yeah.
and I
You
gotta
know,
say-
Iron Goat is actually going to have some drops. It's made of horse manure and sweat socks, I think.
They say it sat in a fooder.
Well, hey, Dave, let's find out how Stacy did with the quiz.
Well, 3 for 3. I think we have a winner. And you can choose whichever prize you want, Stacy. If you want that game or if you want these drops. I
No,
mean,
you get them both. You get them both. Congratulations,
all.
Stacy. You have won our prize, free beer in the pint class, some Miller Lite beer drops, as well as Adam Boyd's own beer drinking card game. Thanks for playing Who's Beer this time. That wraps up the second part of our show. We'll now take a break and be back in a few with a game we call Brewers on Tap.
Welcome back to the Brewhouse stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington. This is Wheat, Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast. I'm Dave Basaraba, and here, as always, is your host, Chris Cindric!
Well, thank you, Dave. And now a game we call Brewers on Tap. Throughout the night, our audience members have had a chance to write down a question for one, a few, or all of our panelists, and we've chosen a smackerel of them to ask our panel to tap into some of that brewer and owner knowledge. Let's get started, shall we? So here's your first question. Do you think that old beer styles are becoming more mainstream?
Ooh.
Are they old beer style? I don't know. I'd classify
No.
old. No.
Some should die.
So what should die? Old beer styles should die.
Wow, that's a hot take.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is drama between us, but smoke beers.
Oh, so that is drama between us because I have a penchant for
so do
smoke
we.
beers,
We like a
but
good smoked beer.
What's that mean?
I favor them.
penchant.
Yeah, but I do understand the majority of the disconnect with smoked beers. I understand that smoke is a flavor that a lot of people either enjoy in food but not their drink, or don't enjoy at all. So, I've been around long enough to know that like a smoked beer is not something that's going to be widely popular. But for me, like a German like smoked beer,
Right, like a true Rausch.
like a
Like a
true
true
Rausch, Rausch beer, a lager, is fantastic.
Right.
But I know so many people who are like, no, that makes me want to vomit.
So another traditional beer that I've been interested in was a Kentucky Common.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and I was reading about it. I was like, this sounds really cool. And then I had one, and it was like an award-winning good one, supposedly.
Do you want to name the brewery?
I was just like, this is the style. This beer is not good. I can see why the Common is no longer that common. But it's kind of a cool thing to brew, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said for exploring styles that are no longer popular or in the ether, I guess. But it is also something you have to acknowledge as a brewer in a brewery is that brewing 10 to 15 to 30 barrels of this may not be viable.
Right, but
there's going to be a niche audience that appreciates it, and so if you can find the right volume that makes sense, I think it's fun to experiment. And then, have the great Northwest IPA in a larger volume for everyone else.
I think we are seeing a beneficial curve though right now where they don't just go to a microbrewery for an IPA. I think that's good.
yeah.
I think that's a good step forward that you can have craft versions of all these different styles, including light lagers that don't have to just taste like
you don't
butt.
have
Right.
to put the Miller
drops
Lite
in,
drops
yeah.
into
Well, and I think it's
And they're like, oh, is this light lager supposed to taste like Pabst? And we're like, absolutely not. like that's their thing. We're not a cover band. We'll use malts and we'll brew it in a style.
We're a
that's
tribute
similar.
band.
We're a tribute band, yeah.
Though, like 5 years ago, Brewer's Brewer's Ego was tied up in their IPA, and now it's tied up in their lager experience.
It's
yeah,
very true.
it is.
Yeah, that's very true.
But we've progressed in a way to be
Because they
able
all
to
have egos.
right, and you
Very
do.
true.
But I think if anything that American craft beer movement has done is it's beer archaeology. Like what's happened is we've gotten to a point where we've been able to unearth old styles, and then people have taken the time to brew those beers. And who knew what a gruit was? 10 years ago, nobody did. They didn't even know that was a thing. Everybody
people
thought
are just trying to
the
forget it.
Sumerians were brewing with hops, is what
They
we
had
thought.
no idea what they would hate.
No.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a thing. Red beer.
I can
gruit.
I can
Wow.
see why they stopped doing this.
But I do think, it's that whole you're allowing the public to taste beers that normally, if we didn't have the American craft beer revolution that we're having, no one would know what a Rausch beer was. Yeah. We wouldn't. You can tip your hat to Blue Moon because that put the wit beer back. Hoegaarden, I think, was the only remaining brewer of the wit beer, and it was almost lost. And then we have that come into consciousness, and now everybody knows what a wit beer is. And 15 years ago, you didn't. So that's the beauty of it,
Whitmer
right?
Brothers came along and brewed something that is not a traditional Hefeweizen and told everyone that it was.
Right.
And now I'm still educating.
But it's American. But we have the American wheat.
Thanks, Whitmer Brothers.
We have the
Just
American wheat beer.
Put my orange slice in the glass.
Yes, that's
Next
right.
question.
Next question. This is for TJ. What was your original idea for Community Pint? And then follow up, did Rachel and Joss fuck it up? No, I'm sorry. Did
Yes.
Rachel and Joss continue the idea, or are they more doing their own thing? I'm sorry but that's basically it. So.
I'll answer the second first. A combination of both.
Right?
Community Pint was me. I'm not there anymore, so it had to be somebody else. It's a small place.
Right.
And, but they definitely, I gave them a bunch of great contacts, and they kept them up. And it just shows craft beer is about relationships. So they kept up those relationships with the different breweries, and they've extended to some newer breweries that are great, and they brought some new names in. And so they're doing a great job there.
Yeah.
What was the first question?
And you have a really good relationship with them, we should say.
Yeah, they
right?
were they were regulars. The reason the sale worked out is, Rachel was looking for a place, and I threw that out there, and they got a killer deal because it just went off the market, and I didn't have to try to sell it and answer a bunch of questions. So it just worked out. And
So it's not the hostile takeover that everyone thought it was.
People were talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a consumer standpoint, and even long before we opened Garland Brew Werks, I was a absolute regular at Community Pint. I mean, a craft beer bar of that caliber that brought in all kinds
Did you
of
know
stuff.
that one of your good friends owned it?
I found that out later after he sold it. I was like, no shit. Yeah. So, but it's been great to continue to go in and have the same like variety and selection and honestly,
little bit better.
Every time I went in, Joss and Rachel were there anyway, so they're still there, and it doesn't feel that different. So it's really cool to see that torch get passed from the torch that got ignited from TJ's work. And see it continue to burn. So, yeah.
Here's a question for Mountain Lakes. Do we know who won the Lester Cup, and when will the secret party invites be sent?
Yes. So yes, we do know a winner, and we're stoked because we've been waiting for these guys to win, and I'm not at liberty to let it out, although I think a lot of people already know.
So that's either Black Label or the Grain Shed.
Yeah.
one of
So
those
you have a
two.
50-50 chance there.
All right.
And we're supposed to be doing it. What is it? Is it April 5th? May 5th?
May 7th is Saturday. We have to get an email out to folks
Yeah,
soon.
so-
and I think
and-
it's going to be in like 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
And I would have already had that email out, but my fingers cramped up. There's like 350 votes, and I have to put all those emails in with these hands.
Oh, wow.
So that's my fault.
Okay. And so then,
They're very
my name's
soft
so and
hands.
where will the Lester Cup?
The party's going to be on the 7th, and it's going to be at Black Label.
Oh, at the Saranac Commons area.
Yeah, it's Saranac Commons.
Saranac Commons, yep.
Because they won?
Oh, no. It's already,
No.
Okay, sorry.
No.
I failed to assume.
Because they have peace pie.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
'cause they have the best.
Peace pie.
The closest thing to an actual New York slice you'll get.
So you didn't have it at Steam Plant. You just decided to have it at
No, that wasn't
Black
available.
Label.
That wasn't available, and I don't have the right
So then that-
attire. I don't have the right attire to
We
do
don't
it.
decide the Lester Cup stuff. We're not.
You just count the votes.
Well, congratulations to
We just
whoever
work for
won.
less. Yes, congratulations
And,
to whoever
we'll
won.
celebrate at Black Label.
Yeah.
Black Label.
Black Label.
I mean, Black Label.
We'll be
It's
there
totally
at Black
cool.
Label.
I think it's a Black Label where we'll be celebrating at Black
At
Label.
Black Label. Okay,
All right,
cool.
sounds good.
We can't win every one. It's just we win every other one, like Tom Brady.
Yeah. This says, I love kombucha. I need a new SCOBY. Do you have any extras?
Oh, I have so. Who wrote that? I have so many.
All right,
I'll
I
hook
think
you.
it's
Okay, I
coming.
got you. I got you.
Got your SCOBY.
Yeah. So they call it like there's like this very fun name, like a SCOBY hotel. If you continue to like grow them, but like I have like jars at home that are just filled with layers of SCOBYs. I got you.
So
We just have a SCOBY Airbnb.
And that works too. It's
Hoping
gotten
for
a
a
little
hotel.
more expensive lately,
Yeah.
the SCOBY Airbnb, but yeah.
Another question?
Yeah, let's do another one.
Okay.
You in for it? You up for it?
Yeah.
So tell us, this is more about your beer drinking game. So Stacy tonight, who's a common theme that we have now,
Okay.
she won this cool game that
She
you
did.
designed. So tell us about it, though. How do you...
It's-
Wait. Plug your new game.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
plug
well,
your
we're
game.
working on a new game, but
Plug your
that's not neither here nor there. The game that you have in front of you, Stacy, is called Hammered Heroes, and it's something that came about a few years ago between a few friends of mine that I knew through the film industry long ago, who were creative individuals and artists and designers. And
But
we're
everyone
also-
seems to be clothed in this image.
Yes, it's very different from my past. But we're big nerds and gamers, and I had a friend who would every time we got together to hang out and drink beer, he would bring some new card game or board game to play. And what
Was that
typically-
Randy or Thomas Croskery?
Neither actually, although they're both
They're
big
both-
supporters.
they
of the
love
game.
games.
Yeah. But we would get together, and by the time the rules started being explained, we'd be 2 to 3 to 5 beers in. And it would be difficult on some of the more complicated games to play. And I think at one point I said, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we had like a really fun game that we could play that like took very little time to learn, and also if I was a little buzzed and or drunk, we could still continue to have fun and play. And that's sort of the seed of what ended up happening, and we developed this game called Hammered Heroes, which we sort of played on a lot of our favorite like fantasy games, for anywhere from Harry Potter to some more medieval-based characters. One of my friends, Clancy, is an artist. He drew all the artwork for the game. And so the idea was to try and make a very fast-paced, kind of fun gotcha game that you could play with a group of friends that even if you're out at a bar or hanging out at a barbecue at home drinking, you can learn to play really quick, and it's fun to play. And there's optional drinking rules if you decide to incorporate whatever beverage you're enjoying as well. But we ended up putting it together, designing it, launching it on a crowdfunding site, Kickstarter. We ended up raising a bunch of money to fabricate it, basically. We launched...
It looks beautiful. It looks like...
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a campaign to create 1,000 copies.
Wow.
That was a few years ago. We've sold most of them.
Parker Brothers.
And so we're now working on our second game, and we're still moving this one, and it's been really fun. And it's been a game that we bring to breweries and pubs where we go, and just to have a good time and play as well. So I'm glad Stacy gets to enjoy it as well.
Hammered
So
Heroes, is there a website where people
there
can go
is
buy the game?
hammeredheroes.com. You can check it out, and you can also follow us on social media and check out our new game that we're working on as well. But yeah.
All right, here's one. This is for the panel. The best beer or brewing in Iceland. Do you know anything about Iceland beers?
I was just in Iceland.
Oh,
In Reykjavik?
no way.
The Northern Lights are better than the beer.
Ah.
But yeah, they got a couple big breweries that are putting out some great beer.
And so what's the style? What do they fall in? Are they more like lagers? Is that
They had a beer that was like a winter IPA that was like an amber.
okay?
Yeah,
And
I
what's
think-
their traditional beers in Iceland? What do they fall in line with? You know?
I don't know that they have traditional beer. It was outlawed for a long time.
Skorgen fucking dog.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through Iceland too with TJ, and it seems like if there was any influence, it's coming from other European countries. Like there were some lagers that felt German-inspired or
Yeah.
Belgian-inspired, maybe. But
Oh, it's sort of like
What-
Mexico.
yeah, exactly. Like
One-
the expats who were hiding from,
From what?
the
Trials?
things they did.
One unique thing about the country is you order a Pilsner and it's a 0.5% beer.
Yeah, yeah.
0.5%
Yeah.
ABV.
That's what they call their Pilsner.
Really?
There are some really neat breweries there, though, that I know are like geothermally powered. Like they're
Okay.
using like the volcanic activity there to like sort of at least heat their water and that sort of thing. So it's an interesting environment for that at the very least. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, last question of the night. Your favorite beer you've ever brewed? Favorite beer you've ever brewed?
Teach, you got a favorite?
Ooh. I think I made an Oktoberfest that was decocted one year. It was probably my magnum opus.
And that was where? Where is that a home brew?
My basement.
Nice.
I actually think TJ and I bonded a little bit because I think that was the same year I had brewed an Oktoberfest as well, and we had come to like a homebrew event and like traded our Oktoberfest, and we're both like nodding, like yes, we have achieved the greatness of.
But can I
German
have
lagers.
mine back, please?
Yeah, I know as a.
You decocted yours too?
Yeah, exactly. We were just decocting all over the place.
All kinds of decocts.
Just no yield to our decocting.
Wow.
But a style that I've always been a fan of and have brewed at home a lot, and ended up having the opportunity to make it at when I worked at Iron Goat was an ESB, a British bitter that I felt. There's always something about that style that I just enjoyed. This sort of sessionable, somewhat hoppy, but also malty pale ale. A lot of times served on cask. Like there was just something beautiful about it, and I made a recipe that I really enjoyed and got the chance to brew it commercially and thought I nailed it. And I've always been really happy about that.
Nice.
But, yeah.
Yeah. If you want to see a disappearing act, give Adam a warm, flat cask beer.
The first time I landed in London, my first beer disappeared in seconds.
Real
It
ale,
was
man.
Just like down the throat. It's a beautiful thing.
It's easier to drink too, and
Oh, so easy.
less
to drink
carbonation.
and yeah, absolutely, and incredibly sessionable. You can hang out all day in a British pub and just drink and drink and drink until they throw you out. Yeah. So.
or invite you to stay when they close the curtains.
right.
Or
Exactly.
tell you to go back to work.
Oh yeah.
Lunch is over.
Yeah.
You're
Back to
out there.
Parliament.
Back there. I was, my wife and I went to London, and there was like, we have a photo, I think. I don't know if we got a photo. But anyway, there's a manhole. It's open, and there's the work stuff around it. And then, like, sitting outside of it's like a Boddington's beer. just hanging out there. Like, the guy's down in the hole,
That's
like,
how
doing
you
his stuff,
work,
and you
man.
come out, and we're like, drinking.
That's great. That's awesome. That also highlights our liquor laws in this country are kind of messed up, but that's a long,
Right.
drawn-out story.
What about you guys? Favorite beer? Brewed?
Oh, I really liked. We did a Maibach last year, and then we brewed it this year too, similar, but we'll see. It was called the Fashion Goat. I think that's the best beer we've brewed since we opened.
I sort of like our pale ales, the Fuggle Pants now, and then previously the Woodwork, which was a little bit kind of like a Manny's, and I just love pale ales because you have all the tastes all together. I also like our super malty beers that we've done. We've done some really hoppy reds, really, really malty reds that are both sort of just caramely and a little bit toasty.
Nice.
And I think they've been, they're just fun to drink.
Good hits. Yeah.
Yep.
Delicious.
Yep.
Sure.
Nobody else likes them, but I love them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have a peanut butter and jelly beer? We got that for so long.
Yeah, a donut and a glass beer.
Yeah, and then
The
we're like,
poker,
finally, we'll
yeah.
brew one. We'll brew one.
All right. Well, folks, it's closing time. A couple weeks ago, I attended the West End Beer Fest. And I have to say, it was a darn good time and many tasty beers and revelry and music to be had. As Spokane becomes more and more recognized as a beer-centric city with increased beer tourism, it's wonderful to see neighborhood breweries bond together to create events like the West End Beer Fest, the Lester Cup Brew-Off, and the Valley Cup Brew-Off. So cheer for your neighbors, because great neighborhoods are what make a city like Spokane awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for tonight. Thank you. Thanks to all of our guests, TJ Wallen and Adam Boyd of Garland Brewworks, and to Babe Basaraba and Tim Hilton of Mountain Lakes Brewing Company. Thanks to our wonderful server, Brian, and thanks to all of you for being here. I am Chris Sindrick. Good night and joy be to you all.
Drink up.